Hey everyone, geophysicist Stefan Burns here. A new surge of plasma on the sun and here on Earth has begun. I've been forecasting there to be increased solar activity and also energetic volatility here on Earth going into the end of July, beginning of August for a variety of reasons. And well, we are now seeing the first signs of that. We have this new sunspot group right here, 4493, rapidly emerging on the sun in just the past 48 hours, displaying signs of hyperactivity, which is a key indicator that there's almost certainly going to be higher M-class flares and even X-class flares soon on the way. No guarantees, but that is very, very likely. Almost every single sunspot group that gives us an X-class flare is showing this sort of activity where it's just like zapping and zipping and crackling and popping. That's quite crazy. It's also made more unstable by the fact that it's right here next to this very big coronal hole. You even see it actually kind of pushing in and encroaching and changing this coronal hole there. But the reason that makes it more unstable is that you have this magnetic field that emanates out from the coronal hole deep into interplanetary space. For example, all the way to Earth. This will actually be connecting to Earth and going geoeffective around the 22nd of July. We're expecting a G1, G2 geomagnetic storm from that. So a minor to moderate storm, nothing big, but it's going to be raising up the volatility. It will be causing there to be more plasma coming into our plasmasphere and more. We're already going to be energized up from that. Well, these sunspot magnetic fields typically are looped locally, and you see that this one's actively growing. So the fact that it's so close to this more open configuration of the coronal hole means there's more chances for the magnetic fields to connect and then explode. And these explosions, for example, are like the size of the Earth itself. I mean, if you were standing there just above this, I mean, this is many times the size of the Earth. In real time, you'd be seeing whole country-size areas just explode with activity, massive plasma arches and prominences and everything going wild. So this is really very significant, especially paired with this coronal hole. You will also notice here there is a plasma filament that launches off. You'll see that coming up. Thankfully, it went more off here to the west solar coordinate system. Though it did launch from the Earth direct zone, it kind of bent off and went this way. And of course, you see all these other big sunspots which are rotating in. So we have a bunch of activity likely to occur following up behind this sunspot. At a minimum, they're going to be increasing the X-ray flux and in general charging up Earth's upper atmosphere, the ionosphere with more plasma. But it's these sort of solar flares, the M-class and the X-class flares that really drive plasma concentrations up a lot. And then there's connections to the ionosphere, the plasmasphere, and also Earth's lithosphere that implicate earthquake activity, because we often see these unusual ionospheric anomalies right before or during earthquakes, like these total electron content deficiencies. And you have these strong telluric currents that pulse through the ionosphere that can perhaps trigger faults. There's some research on that and the reverse piezoelectric effect and a whole bunch of stuff. But we're already seeing activity from this. These solar flares, when they explode, 8.3 minutes later, that light radiation, actual light photons, a quanta of light, they hit Earth, they charge up the ionosphere. So those were striking over the Atlantic and also over North America, more on the Pacific side, which is right now where the majority of cyclonic activity is concentrated in the world, in the Gulf and then also with the Pacific. So we could be looking at an enhancement of these severe weather events as well in the days ahead, all while we have some very significant historic, really, planetary geometry that's active with all the planets effectively. And on the 29th of July, we have a Jupiter-Cassini where you will also have a full moon. And in fact, it's also a Jupiter-Pluto opposition. So a lot happening right now. Looks like this is our first preview of what is coming. It's a sign of bigger solar activity to come. So there's a lot to cover in today's video. Let's jump right into it. And here we see sunspot group 4493 a bit more clearly for about the past 8 to 10 hours, showing us these recent M-class solar flares. By the way, we only get this sort of EUV imagery from the sun from satellites in space, because normally this sort of light radiation absorbs into Earth's ionosphere, so you can't see this from the surface. But you park a satellite in space outside Earth's atmosphere, you can catch it. So this is all fairly recent imagery as it relates to our records going back to like the 1970s. Before that, we don't have any of this information. So here we see that it's really crackling and popping. You see this interesting wave propagating out from the center of this sunspot, which I think is really interesting, encroaching upon the coronal hole I really don't know how to explain that, but clearly there's a big push of solar flux from that sunspot. And we can see that very clearly here with our sunspot intensity gram, which shows the entire birth of 4493 there. And you quickly notice a couple things. A, it's now the biggest sunspot on the Earth-facing side of the sun. I mean, the core there is larger, but overall width of this sunspot, I would say, is largest there right at the end. And every single hour is just getting a little bit bigger. I'm watching this in real time, and it's getting more significant every time, which is why I'm releasing an update for you right now. The other interesting thing I find, maybe coincidence, maybe not, is that it's directly in line with the other two main sunspot clusters on the sun. So this guy right there, that guy right there, it's popping up right in between them and also equidistant. So maybe just a coincidence, but I wanted to point out that interesting pattern there. So we have this guy already having gone through Earth center direct, didn't really do much. Now 4493 is making that journey Earth bullseye basically right on the equator for the next couple days. Could also though hit us if it flares from over here. And then we have this guy and another one rotating in behind it, which have an entire 7-day journey to Earth center and direct. So a lot of probable solar flare activity in the days ahead, but this is the one that's displaying tons of activity. And that's what I was talking about in my last live stream about for this space weather forecast for the end of July, beginning of August, how I think we're likely to see a big event. You need that solar flux to push out to create a sunspot because these guys are kind of old and tired. And well, this is exactly the sort of behavior I was basically describing. Though it's a little early, but we could get, for example, more. In general, the sun's been very, very active. Also with plasma filaments and prominence eruptions and stuff from the far side. There's been some big M-class flares and X-class flare from the sun's far side over the past few days. So the sun, just in general, seems to be going through an upsurge of activity at this moment in time. And here we see our X-ray flux. So these are the solar flares that we've had thus far. And this is our 2.5 M-class flare, our 1.0 M-class flare. And we go to our 14 days before, you'll see that we are charging back up again. So here we started to come down from that big period of activity, end of June, the beginning of July. Then we did have some one-off M-class flares, but then basically we dropped down below the M-class zone, all C-class for more than a week. Now we're starting to go back up. So we're not really in the thick of it yet, but we are now starting to see activity go up and overall ionization of Earth increase. Here we see our DRAP model, which shows us these radio blackouts that occur as that light flux hits the Earth. This is the daylight side. You'll see the spike here. That's from that 2.5 M-class flare, follow-up high C-class flare right there. And then the next 1.0 M-class flare will be further off over the Pacific and America side. So this is where all the main cyclones right now are clustered in the Gulf and then also here in the Pacific. So you know, there is this connection between the state of the ionosphere in terms of its plasma content and its charge, and also whether in the troposphere there is this electric current that connects them, and there's a whole bunch of other things as well. But either way, you know, it's looking like we're going to probably be having an increase in severe weather as a result of these storms if we continue to get big solar flares and charging of the ionosphere from 4493 and perhaps other new sunspots or in the ones that are also rotating in. And just to show you these storms that are clustered around the Americas right now, we have a tropical depression right here, but soon to strengthen into a tropical storm that is going to sweep by New Orleans and then slam into Texas. But this is not a hurricane at this point, category 1 or higher. They're showing it just staying as a tropical storm, winds of 45 miles per hour. They could strengthen though, we'll see. Now that we have this solar activity coming in, it could strengthen in a way that these models don't predict because they don't incorporate that into their models, unfortunately. I don't know why, don't ask me. They don't really seem to take this space weather stuff seriously. Here we see Tropical Storm Fausto, and it has speeds up to 70 miles per hour for the wind, and it's likely actually go to a category 2. So it's just going to veer off here though, keep going into the Pacific. Does not look like it's going to be impacting anything according to the trajectory of those models. Those are typically pretty accurate, by the way. And here we see Elida, which was a tropical storm, but now it's a post-tropical cyclone. Maybe it re-strengthens, probably not, but it did have some good cyclonic activity on it earlier. If we go back a couple days, look at that. Really nice looking there. Perfect vortex, Fibonacci, everything. That sent some big swells up across Baja and California, which is right now where, at least according to my research and my intuition, we have a critical earthquake watch in effect. And that is going to be going into August. So there's a lot of activity right now to be concerned about near California as it relates to earthquake activity. And these storms, you know, they have a subtle influence on faults and more. So they're not necessarily the strongest direct triggers, though you can have these sort of stormquakes that occur. But when you just have all this more extreme weather clustered around an area, and then you're having earthquakes pop off in Venezuela and Mexico and everywhere, well, and then you have the solar activity and the planetary geometry. I mean, it just kind of makes you step back and think for a little bit. So we'll see how these strengthen in the days ahead, but right now they look fairly normal, but they could rapidly increase in strength, or maybe new storms form. Again, this is right now, I'm filming this on July 20th, and my forecast is going all the way to the end of July. So we have quite some time there. Now we'll see what sort of solar flare activity we have in the days ahead. It could just basically stay topped out at this low M class range. And while that's, you know, more charging of the ionosphere than what we've had in the past 7 to 10 days, it's not extreme like an X class flare would be. And so one of the big things that we can look forward to with reasonable certainty is this coronal hole high-speed stream impact. So we see the space weather model for this as released by NOAA. This is our top-down view. That's the sun, that's the Earth. This is our south-north view, same for down here. But here we're looking at velocity. Up top is plasma density of the solar wind. We see here the plasma velocity is quite high. The solar wind is going to sweep by really around the 22nd. This is all universal time. We are going to be in that high-speed stream, and we will be in that for quite a few days afterwards. That is when we expect higher magnitude earthquake activity. Last time we had this coronal hole on the sun is when we had, well, that big earthquake doublet that struck Venezuela, and also the 7.2 that struck Japan. So it is being encroached upon right now by 4493, but in general, the solar wind that was emitted from when it was a little bit wider is already flowing out towards Earth. And this is what that looks like. Here we see a visualization. The coronal hole is rotating into view, and it crunches on Earth's magnetic field, the magnetosphere, that causes changes to the plastosphere, and then all the other systems top down going to even the lithosphere. We see this energy loading effect from coronal holes. So that is active right now. And another thing that's starting to be active is the fact that we have a Jupiter cazimi coming up. So we can check that out right here. This is really cool. We see our chronograph view, and you'll also see these recent ejections from the sun. We've had quite a lot of activity actually launch out towards Mars, and then we see this recent plasma filament right there. So that you can see that that wasn't Earth directed, but it was close. Well, there's Jupiter. So we get Jupiter cazimi every 13 months. This is the superior conjunction of Jupiter as viewed from Earth. And so that means it's an Earth-Sun-Jupiter alignment. So Jupiter and the Sun are going to be going conjunct. We see that Jupiter right now is fairly close on the ecliptic plane. So it's going to be a pretty close cazimi. And that will be on the 29th of July when we have our full moon. And that's also taking part right with the Jupiter-Pluto opposition. So it's really that time period that's looking very critical for the planetary geometry as it relates to space weather, as it relates to earthquakes, because you also have Neptune and Uranus in the aspect to Jupiter and Pluto. Saturn's close by to Neptune. It's conjunct. You have Mercury coming in and conjuncting Saturn and Neptune. And you even have some angles with Venus and more and Mars. So there's just a lot happening right now. It's all converging together. So I'm not surprised to see this rapid emergence of solar flux from sunspot group 4493, because that's the sort of activity that we expect. There is a lot of research showing that these planetary alignments and geometry and more can cause changes to the interior of the sun such that rapid sunspots and that solar flux can push out, can emerge. So we're really seeing it happen in real time with right now with this, these ideas. And there's a lot of data supporting them. And well, every single time we see this over and over, it just strengthens that. So we have this cazimi coming up on the 29th. Jupiter there is already in view with our chronograph, and we'll see what sort of solar storms perhaps launch out towards us in the next few days. I'll be releasing video updates, of course, for you all so we can stay up to date on that. So please subscribe. And I'd also like to point out that SpaceX is launching their Starship on Thursday. They had to scrap their plans a few days ago due to some engine malfunctions, and they plan to launch 20 of their V3 Starlink prototypes with that mission. So these V3s are much bigger than the prior Starlinks, V1, V2, at 300 and 600 kilograms respectively. V3 is like 2,000 kilograms, 4,400 pounds. So this is going to be a total payload about 4,000 kilograms or 88,000 pounds. And the plan is to have them, come out of Starship, unfurl their solar panels, do some basic check-ins, and within 30 minutes disintegrate down into the atmosphere. So SpaceX is basically launching nearly 100,000 pounds of space junk on Thursday into orbit and then just basically letting it blow up in the Earth and ablate into our atmosphere. And there's already 10,500 plus Starlinks in orbit. They're by far the largest constellation, a mega constellation. The other companies or even some governments are trying to do this are nowhere close to where SpaceX is. There's already been 1,000 plus Starlinks that have ablated into Earth's atmosphere, but these have been the V1s and the V2s. The V3s are so much bigger. So that risks that we've talked about and that problem of all this metal and plastic and everything ablating into the atmosphere and depositing metallic oxides into these delicate geophysical layers like the mesosphere and higher up and more, that's going to rapidly exponentially increase. And we don't know the effects of that because we're already now, just in a few years, far outpacing the rate of normal meteor ablation into that zone. Because you have, of course, rocks and asteroids and everything else just coming into the Earth naturally, ablating. There's always going to be some level of metallic oxides and dust and more in these atmospheric layers. But now, because we're taking all this material en masse, mining it out of the crust and simply putting it up into space, where it then falls down, we're exceeding that natural rate and changing these geologic layers far beyond normal. They have very low mass concentrations, and now we're changing that because there's a ton of mass, here on the surface of the Earth, and we're putting it up there with energy. And fundamentally, every single satellite that gets put up there is going to have to come down at some point. If you imagine a Carrington event, a big solar storm impact, perhaps even bigger, you could be looking at thousands of these satellites coming down en masse all at once. And so this can be very serious. And also the bigger something gets, the more likely that some of it will actually survive that ablation and impact. So thankfully, 70% of the Earth is ocean, but we know that the other 30% isn't. And so we could have stuff raining down on us in just 5, 10, 15 years, and there's going to be nothing that they can do about it. It says, oh, sorry, that it destroyed your house. I don't know. This is not good. And there's even a startup that wants to put these mirrors in space, like 50,000 mirrors for just ridiculous reasons. So this is a very real thing and most people are unaware of it. Just wanted to bring your attention to that. Just to finish up, here we have our global seismic activity level. We see that we are still in this period of heightened global seismicity, though it's a little bit drawn out. It's not a classic global seismic burst where it's super focused over 7 to 10 days, something like that. But we see 7.8 there, Philippines, 7.5, 7.2 Venezuela, 7.2 Japan. Also here are 7.3 Mexico. Lots of magnitude 6s in between, but also some days of moderate and low activity. Right now we're at moderate activity right now, but we see there's a very clear difference as compared to the 45 days before. So we are definitely in a sleeper period here, end of April, May, going into June, and then things have ramped up. I expect this to continue as the solar activity continues to increase. Now with this new sunspot and the sunspots rotating in, the new flares, the coronal hole, and all these other factors. But as this plasma event unfolds, and we get them, but as it unfolds, we're probably going to be seeing more high magnitude 6 and magnitude 7 earthquake activity and perhaps even a mega quake. We typically get one a year. Last one was July of 2025, and so it's been about a year. No guarantee that we're due for one tomorrow, but it's very well possible at any moment. So I will keep you up to date on all this and more. One other thing to point out is that we have a sale going on right now on the website earthevolution.com/store. It's 10% off using the code PLANETS, PLANETS, all one word. Use that checkout for 10% off. I don't offer discounts at this level that often, but this historic planetary geometry is quite special. Wanted to offer a good discount and sale as a result of that. We have all organic herbal tea blends, merchandise, and more available to everyone in the United States. We ship this out pretty quickly, and we make and mix all these products ourselves. Some of them are sourced by other people, like my friend Alohi in Hawaii has this amazing natural bug spray, muscle balm, and more. So you can check that out. But I will keep you up to date on everything here on the channel. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Thank you so much for watching. Please smash that thumbs up button to help the channel grow. Subscribe to stay up to date on everything happening with the Earth energetically: earthquakes, volcanoes, solar activity, space weather, planetary alignments, interstellar and cosmic forces, consciousness, and more. In fact, we had big eruptions from Shiveluch volcano today, reaching up into the stratosphere. So also pretty big activity volcanically as well. Mayon volcano with the big explosion just a few days after that 7.3 in Mexico rattled it. So yeah, I keep you up to date on all that. Thank you all so much. Much love. God bless. I'll see you all in the next video.